Warning. The following podcast contains politics, leftist politics, the whole truth, justice, American way thing. We live in a time where one has to post this. Progress is a dirty word, such as science and reason. My superheroes would weep. This podcast contains naughty language as well. Welcome everybody to DC Domingo number 22nd. This episode is titled Old Media News versus New Media Headlines, and it comes in a very, very timely manner. Just want to give out a big shout out. I took a kind of a nice screen cap of the Apple presentation, and here you can see, Zack Snyder, Devin Snyder. In the next row, you can see J.J. Abrams also. It appears that, I wasn't the only one who, noticed that. But my screen cap seemed to have gone kind of viral. Here's a film junkie. Shout out to him. And a lot of other people have grabbed the face of Zack Snyder looking puzzled. He reacted like that because they were announcing facial recognition on the phones. And a lot of people were like, whoa. And I think it's when, it also was kind of funny because the facial recognition kind of didn't work very well. I kind of wish that people wouldn't take, screen caps of Zack Snyder and make dumb memes. But, hey, it's the internet. I'm just very glad that Zack Snyder, likes the iPhone, and he made his short film, Steam Iron. So go ahead and check that on Vero if you can. Give him a like. It's awesome. Also, want to remind everybody of, Unite the Seven. Big shout out to the Flight Cast. I know we had an exchange on Facebook, which I guess it's kind of understanding, and it's kind of nice because we both didn't let our emotions get too high because we're just very opinionated and very we tend to be respectful. So big shout out to the Flight Cast. They're pretty cool. Go ahead and follow them. It's always really good to have a constructive conversation. Given that a lot of people tend to get really heated very quickly, I always find it that the best kind of arguments or conversations are between two level-headed people, and if we can have that, that would be cool. I have not let any comments on my page on YouTube because usually it's not the best format. Now, this episode's going to focus on several things. I'm going to give you the rundown. What we're going to cover. We're going to cover Devin Faraci, Joss Whedon, David Ayer on Gotham City Sirens, Chris McKay on Nightwing, Batman on film, and Batman News. The Marvel Disney Privilege, Mathew Vaughn commenting on Man of Steel 2 sequel, Ben Affleck on commenting on Batman films and the two director aspects. And then we're also going to cover Action Comics 987, and that has triggered some racist Superman fans. Not, racist people in general, but fans who are fans of Superman and are racist, which is kind of unusual. And we're going to close it with a cool message from Henry Cavil that he just posted last minute. All right, so let's get this started. Alrighty, the first topic that we're going to be dealing with, all seriousness aside, sexual harassment is no joke. Last fall, we heard the news that Devin Faraci was leaving the Alamo Drafthouse, family house of movie critics and movie events, because he was accused and admitted of sexual harassment back in 2003. The event happened in 2003. And just last year, it came into fruition. This guy became kind of famous early last year when he started to just be kind of an asshole towards Batman vs Superman. You know, he had an agenda. He posted this. He retweeted this thing by Stingray Almonds. You know, that was kind of like making fun of James Wan. You know, leaving Aquaman. Apparently, you know, being a film critic on Twitter also allows you to be, you know, promoting stupid stuff and jokes like this, when in fact you're aiming to be a journalist, right? So that's what he retweeted, and I, you know, called him out on his bullshit, because in his own page, birth.movies.death. You know, he wrote this stupid piece called I Am Biased, with a giant Captain America shield. And, you know, all the while he said that, you know, we should believe his DC movie reviews because he was biased. It's kind of like a racist a-hole who says, like, I'm racist, but I don't see race. You know, it's very self-contradicting. You know, so we had this little I sent him a screen cap of his own material, you know, like saying, hey, you have previously admitted and flaunted, you know, being that way. And this is the exchange that followed. You know, this guy, Andrew Crutzwell, always got in there. You know, he definitely seemed to be one of his buddies. Yeah, I am going to call him out on it, because you can't be a friend of a sexual predator and not remain anonymous. I'm sorry. That's fucking bullshit. And I happen to get one of the best quotes that I am going to run on my website as long as I live. Devin Faraci, Wildcard Comics, your comic sucks. Which is great, because he wrote it in singular. I'm like, dude, I have more than 500 comics on a daily basis. So this guy's a moron, you know? But I am going to keep that. Because it can apply to any comic. So that was our exchange. And, you know, I wrote to him. It's like, dude, I'm calling out your own fucking words. You know, when I call him gringo, he fucking backed off. You know, he assumed that was just, he didn't want to get into the whole, me being a Latino and me having my people go after him and get him into some kind of fucking trouble. So that's when he put on the fucking brakes. You know, and it's kind of funny though, because, you know, he said, oh, you tweeted me first. It's like, well, actually, no, you tweeted out in the world. You retweeted something that was really fucking stupid, you know? And, you know, he ended the whole thing with like, you know, oh, well, you know, I want to create something eventually. Well, anyways, that was our exchange back in the day. Now, it seems as though he came back into the limelight, because as we're getting near the release of the Justice League movie, Alamo Drafthouse announced that he was going to be back writing for them. And we had an entire day of the Twitter sphere just going nuts. You know, so for instance, we have these awesome people reporting who was the actual journalists who were supporting him. Drew McWeeny, Donna Dickens, Jen Yamato, Elisa Grauso, not surprised, Elisa Grauso, who has a giant Disney banner, and on her Twitter is defending a sexual predator. Okay. You know, that doesn't seem to be very in comprehension with the family values of Disney, you know, but because he is one of their own, you know, he's like in their own clique. They said something like, well, you know, everybody deserves a second chance. And I'm like, bullshit. You know, that motherfucker did something really wrong in 2003. He fingered a girl and then bragged about it to his friends, according to Twitter. You know what his second chance was? 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16. He had so many fucking second chances to come forward and say, hey, I have a problem. And what his buddies over there at the Alamo Draft House says, like, well, he has an alcohol problem, and he's trying to overcome it. Bullshit. I don't think he was drunk throughout the whole fucking span of those years. When you do something stupid and you're drunk, what's the first fucking thing you do the next morning? Ah, shit. I need to apologize for my behavior last night. He never fucking did that. Alright? What about being a fucking asshole? According to the reports, he challenged a movie director to a boxing match because he was a movie critic, and he was like, oh, your movies suck. I bet I can kick your ass. Guess what happened? He got knocked the fuck out on the ring. So that's the kind of person that we're dealing with. What's the excuse for that? He was drunk when he was writing about movies? Fuck no. There is no excuse for being an asshole. There is no excuse for being a fucking pussy-grabbing motherfucker like Trump, there is no excuse for that. And yet, all the journalists were supporting him throughout the whole day. Now, the coolest thing is that we people on Twitter, we promote the truth. And luckily for us, the person who suffered this event came forward, and she wrote the following set of tweets, which I'm going to try to speed read as best as I can. Allow me to clarify some things about the Devin Faraci Team League situation, since there seems to be a bit of misinformation about how the victim, quote-unquote, feels. Last year, Team League called me and told me he was removing Devin from Alamo Draft House staff. I had not asked for this, but I told him it sounded like a good idea. Cut to 2 days ago, people are like, have you seen the statement from Team League? And it looks like an announcement that Devin was being rehired, when in fact it seems like maybe he never left payroll to begin with. So I was lied to and brought into what was essentially a PR scheme, since I never asked for Devin to be fired to begin with, or demanded an apology or boycott. I'm just exasperated at how sloppy it is. Tim emails me an apology after the statement is released. Again, we have come back and forth. Mostly I think Tim really loves and cares about his friend Devin, and it seems like some women in film journalism do too. I get it. I totally get loving your friend and feeling at a loss when he's freaking out much as his career is ruined. But there's a thing. It hurts people. And when you put me and everybody else in a position to have care more about Devin's well-being than our own people he's hurt, you are contributing to the atmosphere that results in women not coming forward about these things. You can lecture me all you want about compassion or second chances. I will point out my threats from yesterday. I want to trust that Tim has said to me, which is that he's going to start thinking about community as a whole. I'm willing to make that leap, but I am also pretty pissed off about being lied to. And again, I do believe in second chances and recuperation, and nobody is lost the cause to me. However, why the lying and subterfuge about the employment? People seem to be glossing over this part pretty hard. When people were saying that this could ruin his career, I didn't want to be cynical at all. I highly doubt that. Especially when you have people like Sasha Stone still saying that Devin is important for women in the film industry. Yes, I'm naming names because I was pretty chill about this time we found ourselves in this situation. I don't want to be tweeting about this. Team League left his shitty dead bird on my doorstep 2 days ago. The film industry won't be good for women until y'all make some compassionate boundaries of the kinds of behavior is acceptable. And the idea that Devin had been working at Alamo all year and this was open secret in Austin, like, get your shit together. That's it. I'm pissed off. Hopefully the situation has inspired some of you to demand better for your communities. Now I may have to lock myself out of my Twitter account because I have writing deadlines. Ha ha ha. So there you have it, guys and ladies and everybody else. Well, everybody in the world, basically. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And luckily for us that he was he left the job. He couldn't handle one day of criticism. Poor guy. Oh my God, he couldn't handle one disastrous day. Well, imagine being harassed and living all those fucking years with that memory. So yeah, I have no fucking sympathy for that guy. The guy's an asshole, should not deserve our benefit of the doubt. Now, coincidentally, just as soon as Joss Whedon got the writing credit on the Justice League film, this happened. Now, we couldn't be, a balanced and fair-minded group of people if we didn't address, the elephant in the room. Um, a lot of outlets have been pointing this out, and I'm just pointing out the source called DC Expanded Universe Hardcore. Just because, I like to promote, smaller pages. Or actually bigger pages than my YouTube channel. But anyways, one of the things that has been wondering in a lot of people is the statement made by Joss Whedon's ex-wife. And, in this in this culture and in this particular channel, we don't really tolerate that kind of behavior towards women. What it is very interesting is that Devin Faraci did confirm to these allegations. It is also interesting to know that the event that for Devin Faraci was caught or kind of got in trouble for, I believe happened several years ago. And, he had all these years to have a second chance, redemption. However, this statement from Joss Whedon's ex-wife only came to light very recent. It never came to light at the height of his popularity when he did the Avengers film. So, what are we saying here? Well, if you look at this article subjectively, you can definitely form your own opinions. Devin Faraci admitted to said event of sexual harassment, and he was not asked to leave, but he left his current employment within a day of all the Twitter outrage. However, there is no comment from Warner Brothers regarding the status of the Justice League and Joss Whedon's involvement regarding this allegation. There is nothing from Joss Whedon's lawyer, and there's nothing from Joss Whedon himself, which kind of lets me to believe that this serves two purposes. One, they're probably going to take legal actions against USA Today reporting this, or they already have some kind of legality play against Joss Whedon's ex-wife. Quite simply because, the statutes of limitation, you can't prove some of these things, but you cannot also disprove them. For instance, I know that many people in the industry have like what they call, open relationships and things like that. It could be that they had that arrangement and, it didn't work out. But also this kind of attitude of, being a politically correct feminist has been lampooned by, South Park recently with a PC principal who, PC stands for, something crushers because they just want to sleep around with women. They pretend to be, all about that equality, and it's just to get women to bed. So it could be true. It could not be true. The main difference is that, again, Devin Faraci has had, two giant repercussions. One, he was shunned from the industry about last year when all this came into light. And then, again, very recently when he was going to be rehired. Side note, his rehiring was going to be just in time for Justice League. And it does make you wonder what the Alamo Drafthouse was thinking, compared it to the Joss Whedon situation. His fan side, Whedon-esque, shut down, on these allegations because, A lot of these fans, can't really verify this or not. Meanwhile, in Hollywood, you still have movie directors and film actresses who defend, Roman Polanski for what he did and fled to France. So, people in the industry versus, fans versus, online critics. It's a very convoluted thing. And I'm just touching up on it because it would be, hypocritical of us not to do it. What do I think in conclusion? Well, I think the allegations were made. I think that she has every right to feel however she wanted. But the fact that there is no response from the lawyers or Warner Brothers or Joss Whedon himself, it's kind of a big cloud. And like I said, if this person really wanted to get the point across, why not, do this piece during the height of his career with Avengers? It seemed a little weirdly timing that as soon as he gets writing credits for Justice League, this piece comes out. Follow the money. That's all I'm saying. Now, what's the lesson about all this? Well, the podcast is about new media versus old media. If this was old media and old media was present, they would have done something about this a long time ago. USA Today reported Joss Whedon's ex-wife issue, but because, we haven't really had any definitive conclusion to this, neither from Warner Brothers or Joss Whedon or Joss Whedon's lawyer. So what happens? It's left out there for the new media to take over and speculate. Myself included. I'm just saying the timing seems fucking fishy. With Devin Faraci, again, new media is the one that stepped up to the plate and was calling him out on it because old media would have taken forever. So it's a double-edged sword, and the problem is that both of these incidents are, reflective of how new media and old media are affecting not only the lives of people, but of these billion-dollar franchises, So with the Devin Faraci incident, I am glad the new media exists. I am also kind of saddened that old media didn't dug up the story back in the day, because this guy has been affecting so many people, not just film directors of movies. He's trashed, but also he has created or helped create this bullshit fraternity house. So if you're not within this fraternity house of movie critics, they'll fucking hate you. So what happens? Sheep mentality. If we don't like this film director, we're going to trash him on YouTube. We're going to trash him on Twitter. We're going to get all of our friends and followers and everybody. And it's just a fucking sheep mentality. Same thing with Joss Whedon, The only thing that I ever liked of his was Atlantis and Titan AE. Those were the only things that I'm like, okay, that's kind of silly and fun. I didn't care for Firefly. I didn't care for Buffy, and I think the French director did the best he could with the Alien Resurrection script this guy wrote. But yeah, I do own the Avengers. I didn't care for the Marvel stuff, but it's a fun, dumb movie. If I was a Marvel fan, I would have hated that movie because it's a bullshit hybrid of Ultimates and classic and new and old. It's all over the place and has no consistency, in my opinion. Faithful to the movies, it does great job, but faithful to the comics, it's just bullshit. Anyways. So that's how new media is working with these. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, or as I like to call it, reality, we have awesome directors taking over, DC movies. For instance, if you haven't, go ahead and follow David F. Sandberg. He is directing Shazam. He's always uploading pictures of him drinking Coke Zero. He's building a tower for every single day that he worked on the movie and pre-production and all this stuff in the script. But anyways, he's a really fun guy. He's having a lot of fun, and he's usually, first line of defense against this kind of like new media clickbait bullshit. And it's funny though because he seems really fun, and he seems perfect for Shazam. Again, he's very in touch with the fans. He retweeted J. Roar, I believe, or mentioned him in a couple places. So, he knows of our existence, and, he knows that we're fans, and he usually replies to you if you're nice. Don't go ahead and bug him, but definitely give him props for being a dedicated movie director. Kind of like David Ayer. He's still attached to Gotham City Sirens. He's still posting all these really cool Easter eggs and, websites like Batman on Film, and all these idiots are saying, oh, he's leaving. And he's like, no, I'm not. When people run out of things to say, David Ayer usually has a good response, very quick on the trigger. So it looks like, Margot Robbie is going to get back into Gotham City Sirens. There's also a Harley Quinn and Joker film planned, and this kind of put any kind of damper on the rumors that Jared Leto is leaving as Joker. We'll get on that later. But yeah, it goes to show you that, in reality, at the Hall of Justice, these heroes are just doing their own freaking thing. Meanwhile, maybe we should start calling journalists who are full of swamp gas the Legion of Doom, because these directors are nothing but amazing. Chris McKay, for instance, he followed a recent actor, and all of a sudden people are like, we have definitive proof that actor is Nightwing. And we go back to the source. He said that, Chris McKay says, I've turned down films because they were backed into a release date that made it difficult to make a great film. Again, he was offered, oh my God, what was it? Thor? What was it? Yeah, I think it was Thor 3, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, he wants to make a good film, and poor Thor. Looks like crap anyways. It's just, we have great directors, who want to take their time to build something good. And that's the wonderful thing. And, clickbait websites don't understand. They're like, I want news now. I want to know how it's going. I want you to post like what you're doing, what kind of scenes, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, people need to chill the fuck down. For instance, Justice Gods, were confused when there were like 2 Joker movies being developed. And my stance to this was like completely ridiculing them, because if you grow up with the comics, there is Superman and Action Comics. Oh my God, there's 2 Superman comics. What the fuck am I gonna do? Same thing with Batman. There's a lot of Batman comics. Detective comics, Batman comics. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? So, and I kind of posted the same thing, like, oh my God, imagine if there was like Arkham City Batman video games, and then there was Lego Batman video games, and oh my God, I can't help it. I mean, seriously, we didn't see this kind of shit when Lego Batman hit the screens, Lego Batman vs. Superman, 2 Batman movies. I'm confused. None of that shit happened. Why? Because people were like, yeah, it's a fucking Lego movie. It'll be okay. I understand the concept. Hello. So they were over here, bitching about it. Like, ooh, I don't really understand. There's another movie. Is Jared Leto leaving? Oh, I don't get it. Basically, they don't understand the concept of Elseworlds, and that's what, Justice God doesn't know the concept of fucking comic book Elseworlds. Get the fuck out of here, What are you doing with a giant Facebook webpage if you don't fucking read comics? That's the fucking problem with movies based on comics becoming really big. These motherfuckers don't read. Period. They don't read at all. And that stems from being lazy, ignorant, and flat out broke. I mean, you can go to many local libraries and they carry comic books and graphic novels. Simple. You don't have to buy them all. And if you don't have friends that have them, please have friends that have them. You can go to discount bins and read old comics. How the fuck do you think that I started reading comics? The fucking flea market had like quarter comics, man. That's where I picked up. They were fucking from the freaking 80s and early 90s, but whatever, man. There were comics I fucking read. I read everything I could. I fucking recall buying old ass comics at the flea market. Issue, 2 of 4. There was like a special, there was a Batman one that was like dealing with like a really hot summer in Gotham City where people were going crazy. So I went to my local comic shop and I was like, I want the other 3. Boom, they got it for me. So that was years later, but yeah, I still kept my old comics and I read up on that freaking storyline. I'm like, oh yeah, they're referencing Son of Sam from New York. That's great. That's awesome. How did I know that? Because I freaking read other things in comics as well. So yeah, you're always teaching these people who don't know shit. I mean, so anyways, in reality, you have Jared Leto and Mark Hamill, having a blast, at a gala, and it's just, this is what real people are like. They're having a ball, while all these like clickbait haters don't know what to make of it and start to make shit up, and we need to end that, because in the old days, old media, other journalists and the competition kept periodicals at check with each other. New media, it's us. We're the new media. We're the users. We're the content providers. We need to keep these people in check and not be fucking lazy and complacent. Because you have wonderful people like Mark Hamill and Jared Leto actually having a good fucking time. We shouldn't take that away from them because they're giving us, amazing Joker performances. So, speaking of clickbait, this is just one of the recent examples of Batman on film and Batman news that was just fucking ridiculous. And other people are guilty of this. For instance, one of the actresses, she worked on the Wonder Woman film, and she was going to meet up with some lady friends at the same place where they filmed, the beach scenes. So she posted a picture of her outfit as an Amazon, and she was like, "Oh, I can't wait to hang out with my friends." That was translated to this, there are more Justice League reshoots, blah, blah, blah. Superhero news, comic book now. We got this covered. Heroic Hollywood. All these websites just fucking ran with it, right? Well, one of the comic book personalities that is actually pretty damn awesome, Kal-El Shiraz, Shiraz Farouk, I6 on Twitter. He actually, instant message the actress is like, "Hey, are you doing any more reshoots for Justice League?" Because that's what people are interpreting your post as. And she's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry. No, we're just meeting up." And that was it. That was it. The whole news was cleared. And, when it was released on Twitter that the actress, didn't mean for people to interpret it that there were going to be reshoots, Batman on Film was like, "Oh yeah, I messaged her too." Like, okay, well, you post everything. Where are the text messages? What, can you fucking screen cap that shit and see the time frame? They never did. So, this has come to an end for me on Batman on Film. I mean, they were posting stupid shit like this, LOL, pretty much. Batman characters, DC Comics staring at it, the rest of the DC Universe, and I replied to them like this. Clickbait, online media staring at it, whereas actual journalists were looking in dismay. We had a very, very civil back and forth, because I was going to go a whole week into their posts and just kind of screen cap their bullshit, but just 3 days. Just in 3 days, that's all the bullshit that they had, and it's just ridiculous. They were posting so much fucking bullshit, and the thing with them is that they're always saying, well, so-and-so says. So they're not even scooping actual news. They're just quoting other people, sometimes even unknown sources. And I finally kind of gave up when they were like, hey, we're getting new servers because the traffic to our place is skyrocketing. I was like, you know what? Fuck that. So I was like, I'm sorry, Batman on Film and Batman News. You guys lost all fucking credibility. And I don't even subscribe to them anymore. So I don't know what kind of bullshit they were posting. And it was interesting that I did that, because apparently they just started spoiling Justice League news. All right. There is supposedly a rumored Justice League screening, which some people are saying that is wrong, that the screening was actually for the Ninjago movie. So we don't know what to believe, and I'm like, you know what, I'm done with that website. You guys should too. And here's the funny thing. This is what they posted. Live look at Warner Brothers headquarters. Do I look like a guy with a plan? My response was like, hey, Warner Brothers could fuck up and sell to Disney just like Marvel Studios after 2 fucking movies, and I'm sure selling out was part of their plan all along. They didn't say shit. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if DC Comics had the same kind of favoritism that Marvel and Disney seem to have with the media? That would be amazing. And, the last post was, does it look like Warner Brothers has a plan? Well, let's look at the competition very quickly. The horrible movie, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, was starting to kind of undo this bullshit mind groupthink that, Marvel and Disney can't do any wrong. The National Review, among others, really started to give that movie a horrible freaking rating. People were like, yeah, it's shit. And I'm like, well, duh. Why do you think I don't watch these movies? IGN surprised me with this one, because they're always, given leeway to the most popular shit. Spider-Man Homecoming suffers largest second weekend box office drop of the MCU. However, they didn't follow it like this with Batman vs Superman. They didn't have multiple articles later on. It's like, is the MCU doomed? What was it right to include Spider-Man in the MCU? What can Marvel do better? Will the disappointments keep on going with Thor 3? Blah blah blah. That was not it. They had to include this because they always brag about numbers, sales numbers, and this one kind of was like, well, too fucking obvious to ignore. So they had to run it. They had to. However, recently, the Han Solo film, which is still Disney, they were fired and replaced with, the little red-headed kid from, American Graffiti, Ron Howard. Yay, I know his name. Anyways, so yeah, you're gonna replace, these 2 directors with Han Solo for Ron Howard. I'm like, dude, what? And again, all the blame goes to the directors, the directors believe they're hired to make a comedy, but they don't, seriously, you don't talk with your directors before you film? What the fuck was going on over there in Disney? I mean, seriously. And that's not all. Here we go. Bleeding C Word published this lovable piece of ball juggling. That is a nice pun. That's a nice pun because it has double meanings. They're tackling bad news while praising the Lord. Former Captain Marvel writer says film is in excellent hands. Yes, you read that, folks. Imagine if, DC had that opportunity, but no. And, the last piece of wonderful news, from Polygon, who they need to up their video game reporting skills because they're now reporting on movies. J.J. Abrams was the only choice for Star Wars Episode 9. Yes, folks, there are many talented black people in Hollywood who can't fucking direct. There are many talented women who can't fucking direct. You heard that, folks. Polygon, the number one source for bullshit. So yeah, imagine what, what kind of bullshit has to go in the Disney house that, you can make so many fucking mistakes and the media will still kiss your ass. Well, at least we have Thor 3. It's not like that's gonna be hella dreadful. Again, we don't really like to focus on a lot of rumors, but I'll make this brief and sweet. Mathew Vaughn, who is going around promoting his latest film, Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, has stated that he would like to direct a second Man of Steel, a Superman sequel. However, there's been like a split 50-50. I even got into a nice discussion with the Flight cast. Pretty cool, people over on Facebook. Check them out. They are part of the, good fellow community. But we had a disagreement about it. And one of the things that I said was like, it comes to 3 points specifically. If someone was to, for instance, Cloverfield, the movie, the director Villeneuve, he's doing the latest Blade Runner. Now, in Cloverfield, his boss was J.J. Abrams. If Villeneuve, if we went around promoting Blade Runner and he was like, yeah, I would like to, make a Star Wars movie like, Episode 4, but maybe with like female protagonist and kind of modernize the special effects a little bit, I would really like to do that. I think people would be like, whoa, he just told J.J. Abrams to go fuck himself. So that's not cool. That would be seen very, very rudely in the industry. Similarly to this, except there wasn't an outrage, Mathew Vaughn, wanting to do a modern version of Richard Donner's classic Superman movie. A lot of fanboys were like, oh yeah, let's have him do that. But they didn't take into account that Mathew Vaughn was Bryan Singer's hired. Bryan Singer was his boss in X-Men First Class. Bryan Singer even wrote the story and was a producer, along with Lauren Schuler Donner, who is Richard Donner's wife and producing partner. So you kind of get a feeling of a giant diss here, because not only is Mathew Vaughn not acknowledging Superman Returns, a movie that his boss Bryan Singer made, but it completely says that movie never fucking happened. I want to make a modern version of Richard Donner's classic Superman, which is what Superman Returns by Bryan Singer is. If you go to Amazon, there is a 3-pack produced by Warner Brothers with Superman, the Richard Donner version, and Superman 2, the Richard Donner's cut. And then you have Superman Returns by Bryan Singer. And that's what, Warner Brothers wants you to buy. That's a trilogy, because Superman Returns was a modern version of the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner movie. That is it. A lot of people in the industry don't really get this, that this is a giant diss. It's like under the table kind of underhanded comment. It's very disrespectful, It would be like J.J. Abrams trying to make a movie about a friendly alien, who lands in the middle of the 80s, and, it's very nostalgic and very beautiful, and he says, I'll be right there, Elliot. Spielberg would be like, what the fuck? I already made that movie. So it is very, very interesting that a lot of people, because they have so much animosity towards Zack Snyder's, they're just like, yeah, whatever, just do the opposite. And it's sort of politic talk, the statement by Mathew Vaughn. Because I don't know if you guys recall, but Mathew Vaughn was in the running for directing Man of Steel, the original one. However, Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers chose, Zack Snyder. And that's why this seems kind of a bitter, underhanded comment. It seems like Mathew Vaughn is like, well, I'm promoting a movie. I might as well, pitch myself out there to Superman 2, ignore Superman Returns, which was directed by my previous boss in X-Men First Class, and just kind of, stick to the man, as it were. The other thing is that it's, and this is where I had an issue with the Flightcast. The Flightcast said that Mathew Vaughn wasn't going to ignore what came before it. But to quote Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, yeah, but you didn't, you saw something and you patented it. You didn't learn from your mistakes. You didn't earn the right to make this. We already had a giant trial by fire here, the DC universe. We fight against the critics, the dumb people who don't read comics, dumb people who don't know how to make movies, or wish they were making movies, but they're making reviews instead of movies, and writing for movie review magazines online. That's the kind of people that we, don't like, because they don't know shit. And, to have Zack Snyder and company, go all this to make, Superman into this century's version of Superman, which kind of borrows heavily from the comics, If you haven't read Kingdom Come, go for it. It's kind of quite relevant. You have this kind of movie director who's like, yeah, I didn't get a Man of Steel back in the day, but you know what? Now that Zack Snyder's no longer coming back, I like to do a sequel. He already did all the hard work. I'll just do it. And to piss everybody off, I'll just redo what Bryan Singer already did, which is kind of like a half-assed, way of going about it. I'll be more inclined to accept, if Edgar Wright came out and said, hey, I want to base my Superman in the Grant Morrison run of Justice League, I'd be like, fuck, yeah. He cited a specific run, a specific aesthetic, a specific iconic status. And one of the things that a lot of people don't get is that Man of Steel was very sci-fi, and Batman vs. Superman was dark because there were children born between the First and Second World War. After that, the golden age of the silver age came into to replace the golden age. And it was a lot more brighter with Hal Jordan and Barry Allen. So the whole fact that Justice League is going to be lighter, that's because it fits the tonality of DC Comics history. It has to do with Mathew Vaughn coming in and making it more like the Richard Donner. That's bullshit. That's already there. The plan is already there. So for Mathew Vaughn to come in and quote, I want to make it like the Richard Donner ones, you're ignoring the movie serials of the 1940s starring Superman. You're also ignoring the entire arc of DC Comics, from Golden Age to Silver Age to Bronze Age, Modern Age, Postmodern, New 52, and Rebirth. So I would like my comic book directors, instead of being inspired by each other, to actually focus on the fucking comics. Now to better news. We're going to cover Ben Affleck, talking about the film Batman and Justice League. We're going to go straight to the source. In Justice League, Batman has to learn to work together with his fellow superheroes, quote unquote. He's put in this position of having to reach out, find other people, convincing them to do something, quote unquote. Ben Affleck explains, quote, part of the drama of the movie is the question whether or not the team is going to make it together. It's a very different form of tenor from the last one, end quote. Also, he continues with saying, and the character is very different too. Batman vs. Superman departed a little bit from the traditional Batman, says Affleck. He started out with all his rage directed at Superman because of his co-workers who had died in the fight Superman had with Zod. For Affleck, most of the hero's ensuing actions were defined by barely repressed fury. In contrast to the Batman we meet in Justice League, he was holding on to a lot of anger in a little bit of an irrational way. Whereas this is a much more traditional Batman. He's heroic, he does things in his own way, but he wants to save people, help people. Affleck frames the new attitude as return to more classical incarnation of the Caped Crusader. This is more in keeping with the canon of how Batman's usually been portrayed, and how he's portrayed via the Justice League in comics, he explains. This is more like the Batman you would find if you open up your average comic book of Batman. Now, that's not that it's average. Affleck clarifies. I think it's a really cool story, actually. It's sort of a story about multilateralism. It's not a bad theme to have. Hey, if the universe's moodiest billionaire can learn the value of collaboration, here's hope for us after all. And I think, those kind of words, a lot of people have dissected them. But this is basically what it really means. We saw his progression. In Batman vs. Superman, he had given up working with others because of what happened to the previous Robin. The anger that he had for Superman was kind of exemplified with the anger he had on year one because of the death of his parents. So it makes sense that this is a much more traditional Batman. After year one, and in between year one and the Dark Knight Returns, Batman was portrayed with a little bit more level-headedness. I know that in the first original comics, he even had guns and was kind of like the Shadow, just fucking a badass vigilante. Whereas he was much more methodical in the in-between years. So yeah, this makes a lot more sense. I think he is going to be opening up to the group scenario, and this will have ramifications for the character as well. He's going to be confronted with Nightwing, Batgirl in other films, so it is a nice progression of the character. Kind of like Batman was always like the lone guy, and via the Justice League collaboration, he's going to be like, I need my own Batman family. Seems pretty fucking legit, right? Why would anybody complain about that? Exactly. So it looks like Warner Brothers is in fact doing really fucking cool things, and they know what the fuck they're doing, despite what everybody else is saying. Mr. Ben Affleck also went on to clarify how the how the two directors' things are going. In a conversation with Entertainment Weekly, Affleck also brushed off rumors of the Justice League reshoots indicating problems with the film. Quote, "I've never worked on a movie that didn't do reshoots," end quote. Affleck says, "Argo, we did reshoots for a week and a half, 4 days on Gone Baby Gone, and although the studio hasn't said anything official about Affleck's future as Batman, the actor is confident that Justice League reflects the best ambitions of the DC Extended Universe. Quote, this is really a nice time to work in DC. They're hitting their stride. They're getting it right. It's starting to feel like it's really working." It's end quote. Now, working with two directors, he goes on to say, it's a little bit unorthodox. SAG had a family tragedy and stepped off, which was horrible. For the movie, the best person we could have possibly found was Joss. We got really lucky that he stepped in. An interesting product of two directors, both with kind of unique visions, both really strong takes. I've never had an experience before making a movie like this. I have to say, I really love working with Zack, and I really love the stuff we've done with Joss. And there you go. There is no indication of tone changes. We already explained on, the past podcast that Zack Snyder wrote and designed everything that was going to be in the reshoots. Joss Whedon was brought in to write some dialogue. Joss Whedon has gone on record saying that he is going to film in the Zack Snyder style. I mean, we don't have Zack Snyder doing cinematography here. We have our own cinematographer. We have the same, crew, the same cast. So it's just mostly like, follow whatever's in the playbook. And, it seems legit. I don't really understand where the confusion comes in from all these haters. Maybe perhaps because they don't want to be journalists and, bug, these people in real life through legitimate channels. So they just make up shit. Now, the last topic that we're going to be dealing with is kind of a personal one, but it encompasses everybody. I didn't realize there were so many haters in the Superman community and comic book community in general. With the release of Action Comics 987, where Superman saves a bunch of people from a gun-toting asshole, there were people that had a problem with that. Especially because of the depiction of the gun-toting asshole with the USA flag, a bandana, and him assuming that people of brown color were illegal immigrants. Fox News had a fucking fit with this. Well, let me tell you that a lot of people in the community kind of, took the high road and were like, I'm not even gonna comment on this. Even though Mexico experienced really fucking horrible tragedies with multiple earthquakes. Even though Texas, a state that was stolen from Mexico, full of nice people and some racists too, suffered a catastrophe in the form of a hurricane. Same thing with Miami, same thing with Puerto Rico. People still find it in their hearts to be assholes. And that's the thing that I found that was kind of disheartening. For all the wonderful things that Superman stands for, there are people who claim to be Superman fans and are still assholes. They're still angry that Superman is saving immigrants. There were people online, and I'm going to name this website, the Superman homepage. Steve Eunice is a really great person, but he needs more moderators. There were a lot of racists in that page, and I had an argument with a few of those people. Quite simply because their version of Superman doesn't really fit the comics, Their version of Superman, it's the mockery cartoon that we saw in the cartoon Batman versus the Elite, which was based on another controversial Action Comics. They want a Superman who basically it's a mockery of himself. They want a Superman who rescues cats, smiles, parades, and walks down Main Street, USA, handing out cherry pies, and just gonna go, stay in school, kid. That kind of cartoon is not the Man of Steel. That kind of cartoon is not Kal-El. That cartoon is not Superman. They're clinging on to the sanitized version of Superman that survived the Senate hearings from the 1950s against communism and naughty comics. A lot of these people who comment on who they think Superman is don't know shit about Superman, don't read the history of the character, they don't know the context of the character. It's kind of like the people who love guns, and they're like, I've read the Constitution, but then, a constitutional lawyer comes along and says, hey, actually, the Second Amendment says, if you join the army, you get a gun. People go like, what? No. That's not what my ignorant brain interpreted. Who are you? Judge says, I don't know. Someone who fucking went to school for this shit. So, again, with Superman, we have really opinionated people who believe their version in their fucking mind is the version we should all adhere to. What do I adhere to? Well, here's the thing. An amalgam of everything. A combination of everything. So, for instance, Joe Siegel and Joe Shuster were sons of immigrants. Oh shit. Did you know that? Of course you did. You know that they were Jewish, speaking against neo-Nazis. Oh my god. Or, back then, real Nazis. The legit ones. So, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, have somehow sang Kumbaya and targeted all of us. And Superman have spoken about this in the latest issue, and Superman fans have a fucking problem with that shit. I showed him a bunch of screen caps from Action Comics #1. Superman deals with some asshole beating his wife, an overzealous landlord, corruption, and politics, and a bunch of rapist people trying to get on Lois Lane. So, that's how Superman is. And big shout out to, the big fan in the community, Kal-El Shiraz Farouk on Twitter. He was interviewed by AJ, and, he did many press for this and things like that. So, big shout out to him. Go ahead and support his Twitter page. Go ahead and look at his video. And yeah, for more clarification on what I think about this, check out the previous podcast entitled Who or What is the Real Superman? Because guess what? It's not what you think. And stop trying to make Superman plain again, because he started awesome and super. Let's keep it that way, folks. This is DC Domingo signing off, saying see you later.
Dear Mexico, I know you're going through a really tough time right now, but I wanted to record this message because you guys are one of my favorite countries to visit when I'm on a press tour, and you always fill me with so much goodwill and good energy. And so I wanted to try and return the favor by sending this message of hope, goodwill, and positive thoughts your way. Here's to a speedy rebuild process. Good luck.